Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today is Ficus Friday, and today I'm going to do a bit of restoration work on my Tigerbark Chinese Penjing. My Chinese Penjing took quite a beating this winter. I initially lost two trees, one in the corner here and one behind the building here. And I think it was from lack of light. I had the planting at the back of the plant room and there was no grow light on it, and two trees just suddenly died, and I thought, oh my goodness. So I put a grow light behind the planting to give it more light, and that kept all the rest of the trees alive for the whole winter. But that was just the start of my problems. Because the planting was at the back of the room, I couldn't really get access to it. There's trees all in the front, and I knew it had insect problems. I know it had spider mites on the one tree, and it had scale on another tree, but I just couldn't get at it. The plant room was so crowded with trees. So it was a bit of a wake-up call to me. This summer, I'm going to work hard on the plant room, organizing it, getting shelves put in, grow lights put in, so it'll be a nice setup for next winter. I moved a lot of trees from the plant room out to the glass greenhouse here, so I had access to my Chinese Penjing. So I brought it out in the greenhouse today to begin the restoration work. I'm going to start the work today by giving the planting a thorough watering. I noticed that there's some dry areas at the back. I had to water from afar, kind of squirting water into the planting, and I'm sure it's quite dry behind the building. So that's where I'm going to begin. A nice thorough watering, soaking the planting so it drips out the bottom. So here I go. And it's starting to run out the bottom now. This also helps flush out the soil of any, fertilizer buildup or anything like that. It's good to give your trees a good thorough watering when you can. Okay, that should do it. It's raining in the greenhouse here, and it's raining outside. Or maybe more like ice pellets. So we're getting some cold weather coming this weekend. Lows at night of -2 or 2 degrees below freezing. So I'll have to keep the heat on here in the greenhouse. Keep all my tropicals nice and warm. I picked up this rickshaw at Tropical Expressions last time I was down there. You can see all the aerial roots that have grown over the winter running through the moss and across the landscape. My next step for today is to clean up all this debris. There's weeds in here, and I've got to pull those out. At the back of the planting, there is a giant weed, and I'll show you that. Here's a look at the weed growing out the back here. It's just huge, and the weed isn't doing very well. Looks like it's having a rough time. So I'll have to get that pulled out. Now, I don't even know if I can see where this weed is growing from. There's a whole bunch of different stalks coming up. I think what I'll have to do is prune off the foliage so I can see in there. Well, the rain stopped outside and it looks like maybe the sun's coming out. That'd be nice. Wasn't much of a rain, it just lasted a few minutes and that was it. Yeah, that's a big, thick, woody kind of weed, and it's growing right beside my ficus. Gonna be tough to dig that out. I'll show you a close-up of it. So there's a look at the base of the weed right here. There's all kinds of stems coming up. It's gonna be really tough to remove that. I'm going to remove the house first so I can pick it up and move it out of the way, as long as there's no aerial roots attached to it, which I think there might be. What's going on here? Yeah, there's an aerial root that's grown up into the house. I'll just pull. There. Okay, that's out of the way. Now I can see my weed much easier. Wow, that's going right beside the ficus. That's going to be really tough to remove. I might have to remove the ficus and the weed at the same time and then separate them and replant the ficus. I think it might be the only way. Like when I move the ficus, the weed moves. When I move the weed, the ficus moves. So I think the roots are intertwined. I managed to be able to grab the top of the weed and pull it out. And I noticed it's quite dry underneath the weed where I pulled it out. So I'm going to give it another watering at the back of the planting here. So there's that weed. I think it was like a plantain or something. All right, more water back here now. Okay, that has got it. My next step, I'm going to remove the dead trees. So there's one here. And I don't know what killed it. I suspect it was low light, but it could have been lack of water too. Maybe I just didn't give it enough water back here. And then the other one is this tree out front here. This is the one here, so I don't know, something killed that one. So after those two trees died quite suddenly, I increased the watering. I thought, well, maybe it's lack of water. And I put the light in, so I don't know what it was, but the rest of the trees are alive. I plan to replace the dead trees with cuttings. I'll do that in the summer. I'll put the house back in position here, just like that. And I'll continue the cleanup. There's all kinds of dead leaves to get out of here. And weeds. Another weed. So having this planting kind of suffer has been good incentive for me to get my plant room completed this summer. So it's all set for next year. So I can get to all the trees so they all have good light. So rather than the trees go downhill in the winter, hopefully, they'll gain health and vigor. I'm going to keep this Penjing out here in the greenhouse. I think it'll be a good place for it to recover, start growing really well. The plant room is very dark this time of year. The sun's higher in the sky, so it doesn't shine in the windows as much. I've got the landscape all cleaned up of debris. I did notice a few trees with scale insects on them. So my next step is to spray the trees. Here's a look at one of the worst trees. You can see along the trunk there's these little scale blisters. So I break all these scale blisters off first before spraying the tree, because the insects are underneath them protected by that waxy coating. So if you get that off first and then you spray, you will kill all the insects. Now some of the sprays, if you use alcohol in your spray, you can kind of penetrate the shells a bit, but it's still better, I think, to scrape them off first and then spray. So I've got those insect scrapes, and now I can spray it with soap and water, just like that. And just keep going. You don't have to do the whole tree at once. You just scrape away, spray, scrape away, and spray. And eventually you'll get all the scale blisters off. And just keep watching your trees over the next few weeks. If you notice new scale blisters, keep spraying, scraping, and spraying, and you'll get rid of them. They don't like this soap and water at all. What I'm spraying on is 1 part liquid dish soap to 40 parts water. So kind of a dilute mixture of soap and water. And you'll notice once you get the scale off your trees, the health rebounds very quickly. You'll notice like within a week that there'll be new shoots on the tree. The tree will start looking really, really healthy. Scale insects can really zap the strength and vigor out of a tree. And it doesn't take a lot of scale insects to do that. Some trees are very sensitive to scale insects on them. And once I'm done all this cleaning off of the scale insects, I'll water the tree again really thoroughly, washing all this detergent away and washing it out of the soil. And some trees you have to look very closely to notice the scale insects. Some of them blend in quite well with the bark. Here's a leaf with that black sooty mold on it, so you just gotta rub it off with the soap and water. Clean your leaf off so it can do photosynthesis once again, like that. Now you'll find that once the trees start growing again with vigor, that all these weak leaves will dry up and fall off. They'll be replaced with better leaves. This is the back of the planting, and out of all the trees, this tree was bad, this one was bad, and this one had some, and the rest I can't see any scale blisters on them at all, so it's kind of isolated to this area towards the back. So I've done a lot of work on them, trying to get all the scale blisters off and sprayed down with soap and water. I have sprayed all the other trees too as a preventative measure. I think these trees are going to like being out here in the greenhouse where they finally get some good light and fresh air and sunshine. So if you can get them through winter successfully, that's good, because that's one of the hardest things to do with tropicals, is to get them through the winter and have them be nice and healthy in spring. So I kind of failed with this planting, but you know, I'll get to that plant room. Next year we'll have a better year. Bit of dieback on some of these trees. Because of that weed growing here, I lost a branch here, so I'll prune it back to some living tissue. Just checking everything over now, making sure I've got all these scale taken care of. You've also got to check your leaves for scale. I haven't seen too much scale on the leaves themselves, mostly on the trunk and branches. But you got to check underneath the leaves, and you'll find scale everywhere. And they suck the sap out of your trees, so they make the trees very weak. Ah, some nasty blisters here. Get the spray on that. Lots of soap and water. Soap and water just suffocates the insects. They get that soap film on their, I don't know, whatever they use to breathe with, and it just kills them, like almost instantly. I've been picking the little scale blisters off the trees for almost an hour now. So now I'm ready to give it a thorough rinsing to get rid of all that soap and water. So here I go. I'll start at the top and make sure you rinse it really well. Get all that soap out of there. You've got to get it out of the soil and the trees. So I'll just keep checking these trees over every day, and if I notice any scale blisters, I'll pick them off and respray with soap and water and just keep at it until they're totally gone. And you will get rid of them eventually. Especially if you pick the blisters off. If you don't, pick the blisters off, well, they're kind of protected there, and your scale will just keep coming back. So now I'm really soaking the soil, getting all the soap out of the soil. And I think that will do it. A good thorough rinsing and flushing that soil out. It would be really tempting with this planting to do some pruning, But I want to leave all the leaves on the trees I can until they've recovered. So once it's growing vigorously, then I'll prune it back, getting all the trees back in shape. When Kale visited last time, he brought me a whole bunch of 3D printed lanterns and a couple of bridges. I'm going to try some of them out in the landscape and see if they fit in and look good. All right, I'm going to try some various pieces out. So I've got a ceramic bridge back here. I'm wondering if a more detailed bridge would look better. It definitely would. That looks quite nice. I've got some lanterns, so I've got the kind that kind of reaches over. Might be nice. I've got a very miniature one that could go back here in the garden. Like that. Looks quite nice. Not the right place for it, but this one is quite large. I don't think this is a suitable scale, so I won't use that one. This one might be, like maybe in the garden back here. No. I need to paint all these pieces. And then I'm not sure about my rickshaw. I bought it just thinking, well, maybe it'll look cool. Now there may be such a thing as having too many lanterns and details. Let me stand back and have a look at it all. I've got all the figurines and that kind of placed where I think they look okay. So here's a look at the landscape now. There's my rickshaw in the pathway. I've got the lantern over here. Looks nice under the trees. My bridge, I've bought some steps that I put in, and I've got a rock there to lift the bridge up. That'll needs a bit of fixing up. That's just kind of roughed in for now. I've still got my stone there, the vertical stone, and the lantern behind. And then the other lantern I put over here in front of the house to kind of light the pathway going into the house here. So I'm so glad to get to this tree today. I hated seeing it suffer back there in the corner of the plant room. I think you're going to see this just kind of explode with health over the next week or two. Growth. I think the moss is all going to green up really nicely. I think it's already starting to green up just by bringing it outside today. I can definitely see it's greener. Yeah, so the trees, they're all scale-free, ready to grow, and then I can't wait till I can prune it all to size. I think it'll look really good. I like a landscape that you can explore, full of interesting things. We get those bushes looking really good this year. Yeah, it's a fun planting. I really enjoy it. At first I wasn't sure, it's not really my style, and it's kind of, I don't know. But I really like it now. I think by the end of summer, once it's all looking good, I think it's going to be really cool. I noticed that if you look at the building in here, let me come up here. In the corner there's moss growing up the building. So it's quite possible these buildings will get some really nice natural patina on them in the future. Algae and moss, and I think that'll look pretty cool. So yeah, that's my Chinese village Penjing. Ficus Friday continues now, and I'll show you a brand new book that's just out. It is Freestyle Bonsai by Mari and Jerome of the Bonsai Supply. It's Ficus Friday, and there's a new book out with a Tigerbark Ficus on it. Freestyle Bonsai by Jerome and Mari. I'll read the back cover of it. A fresh approach to an ancient art. Bonsai is steeped in tradition and techniques that can be intimidating to those who are just getting started. In Freestyle Bonsai, you'll learn that growing bonsai doesn't have to be formal or scary. Like other art forms, Tending and training these miniaturized trees is about finding joy in the act of creation. It doesn't have to be about following strict rules or seeking perfection. Authors Jerome and Mari, owners of the Bonsai Supply, welcome bonsai newcomers into their world by introducing all the tools and methods you'll need to get started growing your own collection of tiny trees, while also giving you the permission to bend the rules along the way. Step-by-step instructions for potting your trees, styling them, and maintaining tree health are included, along with easy-to-follow training and shaping instructions to create 10 different classic bonsai styles, including cascade, weeping, slanting, windswept, forest, and more. You'll also find additional advice on the best types of trees for beginners, how to repot trees and which containers to use, choosing the right bonsai tool for each task, clipping, training, wiring, and other bonsai styling methods, how to water, fertilize, and care for your trees for years to come. The art of bonsai is personal, peaceful, and easier than you think. So this book retails for $25.99 US or 18.99 pounds UK or 34.99 Canadian. And you can order the book online through lots of different places. You'll find the book is just packed with tips and tricks to help you out on your bonsai journey. I wish I had a book like this when I first got into bonsai. Another awesome book for my bonsai bookshelf. Thanks very much, Mari and Jerome. I also got a cool gift from Tom from the YouTube channel Grow and Clip Bonsai for Seniors. I'll show you what he sent me. Here's a look at what Tom sent me. It is a seed planting kit. So you get these are, you put your seeds in here, you fill it with seeds, and then you dial in the number. So there's openings. So this is, let's start at 0 here. 0 is closed. You move it to 1 and you get little tiny seeds will come out. So there's the little opening for 1. 2 gets larger, 3 even larger, 4, and right up to 5. So you can put your seeds in here and you can just drop out 1 seed at a time for planting. And there's a planter, so this makes a hole in the soil and you can go up to a certain depth. There's centimeters and inches, so you can go plant it 1 inch deep, 2 inches deep, 3 inches deep. It goes up to 10 centimeters. So that's really cool. There's also a little kit in here that has a little mini, same as this, conical shape for planting smaller seeds, and a little seed dispenser and a scoop. So that's awesome. Thanks very much, Tom. That'll really help out with the seed planting. It's time now for today's updates. My first update is my Ficus bengalensis, and I'll show you how the Rootmaker pot is working. Here's a view of the Rootmaker pot, and it's a special design that has holes in the bottom, and I'll show you around here. You can see it working. There's a root that grew out of the hole, and you can see it air dried and died off. And you can see it, there's other roots in here growing out here and here. They grow out the holes and then they air dry off. So that creates subdivision of your roots inside the pot. So you'll get a really dense root base inside the pot with very little effort. I did quite a severe root pruning on this tree, and now it's recovered and it's beginning to grow once again. The next update is my baobab trees. I put these trees in the plant room in fall and I haven't watered them since. So they've been going the entire winter with absolutely no water, just the humidity in the air, and now one is beginning to leaf out. Here's a close-up of my smallest one, and on the top you can see the leaves just starting to come out, so that's exciting. I was feeling the trunk on this baobab, and it's nice and solid up here, but when you get down here it's a little spongy. But it seems to be firming up. I did give this a little bit of water. I thought, well, maybe it's too dry. So I gave it a little bit of water, and I think it's firming up, but I'm not sure. All looks good on it. So we'll just have to wait and see if the leaves start coming out on this one, and then I can begin to water them as the new leaves grow in. I have one more baobab growing in the plant room, and now is the ideal time to prune and repot them before the growth comes in spring. So look for that in an upcoming video. I've never repotted or pruned a baobab tree in my life, so this will be a new experience for me. So I am quite excited about doing this and getting it into a nice pot. I was checking my desert rose forest a couple of weeks ago, and the trunks on them were kind of spongy, and I thought, oh no, I've overwatered them and killed them. And so I thought, well, I haven't been overwatering them. I have them placed in front of the heater and the fans blowing on them. I only watered them the one time when I repotted them, and I've just kind of been misting them since that. And I thought, well, I can't have overwatered them because I only watered them once. So they were kind of spongy, just like my baobabs at the trunk. And I thought, I wonder if it's from underwatering. So I gave them all a watering, another watering, their second big watering, and waited. And sure enough, now the trunks are really nice and firm. They feel really hard. So it was just underwatering them. So I was so relieved because desert rose and I don't seem to get along that well. I've killed many along the way. So I was hoping these would be the first ones to thrive and survive. And so far they're looking good. Tomorrow I'm heading to Hamilton for the second of my Tropical Expressions workshops. And the tree we'll be working on is a Chinese privet, a tropical privet tree that should make a really nice bonsai. The trees that we'll be working on are really quite developed. They're quite spectacular. So I'm really looking forward to Saturday night for my second workshop and working with all the people who signed up. I'm going to finish off today with some updates to some of the trees in the greenhouse here. So the first one here is my Norway maple. You can see all the new growth coming out on the top of the tree. It looks really healthy. So I hope it has survived the root work and the repotting. I gave it a good repotting. So yeah, and new soil. So it should grow well this year. My Austrian pine here. Check out all the new buds and candles on it. Yeah, it's just covered with them. So this will be the Emperor's new clothes. Right now the tree looks very sparse. Very few needles on it. That's because I removed most of the needles and did quite a severe pruning to the branches. And now you can see all the new candles growing in. So this is just going to be full of greenery by the end of summer, I think. It's going to be quite a change from what it looks like now. The boxwoods over here, the new shoots are growing in really nicely on it. My red maple over here is looking good. The juniper continues to push out new growth. The cherry back there is looking good. The field maple here, looking nice. My royal oak is starting to come out into leaf now. You can see the new leaves just coming out. The French lilac, still looking good. My purple smoke bush down here, the leaves are still trying to push out on it. They're not dying, they're not growing, just kind of neutral at the moment. So I'm hoping it's building up new roots and then it'll start pushing out. The trident maple here, doing really well. My Japanese graybark elm here, the Zelkova, looking good, growing like crazy. The mulberry, it's also looking really good. You can see some of the leaves coming out now. Awesome. I'm not sure if this is a red maple over here, actually. It might be like a black maple or something. Anyway, it's growing well. The Pyrenean oaks, the buds are swelling on them. I expect those to be coming out into leaf quite shortly too. Down here under the benches, I've got my Manitoba maples, and they're all leafing out really nicely. The leaves look really healthy on them. So I'm quite excited about that. My American elm here, one of them is pushing out new leaves, and they're looking healthy too. There's another one over here. It's just starting to get some foliage coming out on it. Very exciting. I was very happy to get my Tigerbark Ficus in my Chinese Penjing cleaned up and back on track. I think you'll see quite a dramatic change in the next couple of weeks. That's all today for Ficus Friday. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.